This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
KFAN welcomes Trans-Siberian Orchestra for two amazing shows at Target Center on December 28th. They're at 3 o'clock and 7:30, and tickets are on sale now. Get the complete show details, including a link to buy tickets, KFAN.com, keyword calendar.
Time for another installment of Dairyland Diaries.
It's emotional for me. I don't know the last time we played that soundbite, that open. Dairyland Diaries used to be a weekly staple of the Bumper to Bumper program. And over the years, because we work so hard to freshen stuff up, we decided to go in different directions. Didn't want to run anything to the ground. Last thing we want to do on this show is run anything into the ground.
Correct.
And so it kind of went away. Now I kind of miss it. And maybe this will be the nugget that reopens the door to a new golden era. You know what I'm saying? I think it's possible.
I'm with you.
This isn't a lengthy story, but, God, it's a classic. And this falls under the classification of, have I fact-checked this one? No, because I don't want to, because it's too good to not be true. Here's the tweet. Today, I helped push a random girl's car from an illegal spot 40 feet down to a legal spot to avoid a tow. The car worked fine. We had to push it because none of the 8 people around us could blow a zero, and she had a DUI device. It was truly the most Wisconsin form of Midwestern hospitality. How good is that? I don't even know if it's true, but it's brilliant. Is it not? None of it. We're all afraid. What if we get nailed?
Well, they have a device. It's your smart start. They won't start.
They won't start. Yeah,
It won't start, so they have to push it. They couldn't find one person to get in the driver's seat.
There were 8, they said. And none of them wanted to risk blowing into the device.
You get in trouble.
Well, that's a good question. So if someone else blows into the device,
yeah.
Well, all that will happen is it just won't start, right? It won't necessarily. Is there a system there where it alerts the cops at that point?
I would depend on the system. I don't know.
Yeah.
But if you had the sober person...
Maybe I should know. I'm a Smart Start guy. Yeah.
You should.
I've got Smart Start sources who might be able to answer that question.
They would... Yeah, you would like to think that if you did have the sober person, they would actually just drive as opposed to having to just blow into it so someone else could drive. No, I think that's 100% believable.
It's 100% believable, and it's Hall of Fame level, though. I mean, because it involves so many people. It's like, well, we got to move this thing. Well, just, Johnny, get in the car and just drive it, and then everything will be fine.
It won't start.
It won't start.
Can't do it.
I tried it. Now, what he didn't say is how many actually tried it.
Right.
That's what I would be. The kicker to the story would be all 8 of us tried it, convinced that, well, we're not. I'm fine. Right. I'm not going to.
But got the wrong reading.
And got the wrong reading. And they said, well, now we got no choice, but we're going to have to, we're just going to have to push it or pull it, whatever the case may be. How good is that?
I want to
have to run that one by Gerby.
Yeah, I just want to know what town, what city, like, did they need. How are they parked illegally in the first place? And only 40 feet to get to the actual good spot? That's good. Like, was this a downtown situation? Was their meter expired? There's so many questions. Like you say, I'd love to see some follow-up.
My one hesitation about following it up was finding out that it wasn't true.
I think it's 100% true.
But I think it's certainly believable.
And nobody works harder together than a group of drunk people. Like, you really have a good Ubuntu.
But most of them aren't really capable of doing any good.
That's why it's beautiful, though, because they've got great plans and great ideas. It's just the execution of the ideas sometimes a little tough.
Here's what's interesting. The tweet was offered up by somebody named Sean, Oroni. The responses are interesting.
Okay, I'm listening.
For example, Minnehaha at beer_Wisconsin reacted this way. People don't understand the open sociability and the fun of a busy bar outweigh the negative health effects of alcohol. Wisconsin drinks way more, but the median death age is still above normal. His theory is that even though people drink more in Wisconsin, they actually live longer because the positive parts of the mingling in a social setting outweigh the alcohol. Now, that might be convenient logic.
Right.
Even though, that's what he wants to believe. I don't know. Here's another response. This is why you keep balloons in the car. You blow them up before you start drinking. You then untie them and let them blow into the DUI device to start the car.
Planning your work and working your plan.
I can't even imagine. Were you aware of that being a way to beat the system?
No, I was not.
That seems dangerous.
It is. Yeah. It doesn't sound great.
Then Courtney tweeted, one time I had to pick a friend up for work because she had a blower on her car and still wasn't sober enough at 8 a.m. to get her car started after we went out the night before. That's not good. 8 a.m. after?
Mm-hmm. It means you had a hell of a night.
It must have made you had a hell of a night.
Depends on how you look at it. It can either be a buzzkill or we had a great time last night.
Tweeter Crash Davis, we don't appreciate Wisconsin enough. That's probably one of the most cheesehead things ever. There's a lot of good response to this thing. And the balloon thing was interesting to me. I didn't even know. That sounds like you're cheating the system.
That's next level. Yeah.
But that would probably be big in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I guess. I don't love it.
Well, I can't read that one. There's some in there. There's some in there that aren't not good to read. In any case, I hope this, maybe gets the creative juices going and that our listeners will be, because let's face it, a lot of times we're getting this material from our listeners, that this will inspire them to be more vigilant.
Yep.
And to reintroduce Dairyland Diaries so that it's more than once every 8 or 9 months. We don't want to devalue it and just offer items that aren't worth the trouble, but I think there's still fertile territory out there, fertile ground. We're just not any longer, I guess you could say, harvesting it the way we once did and could.
You know what also hurts us, I think? The loss of community newspapers and radio stations. Because we used to get a lot of them from the small-town newspaper,
point. You're
right?
exactly right.
You'd get them from the smaller papers that weren't reporting on a lot of the statewide stuff, but they had situations that popped up. They had sources in the local police precincts and things like that. You lose a lot of that, I think.
Interesting Smart Start update. If you blow into the Smart Start, it will warn you and not allow another test for 5 minutes. If a second blow is over the limit, the device locks you out for the day.
There you go.
That's good. That's safe.
So that's why those 8 couldn't do it.
They couldn't risk it. It wouldn't even matter. How far is 40 feet?
40 feet?
That's how they said that. How far? I said how far they were moving it. How far is that?
I mean, it's 4 basketball hoops. Probably.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, probably from like the back of my room to the back of your room. Probably somewhere along those lines. Not too far. If you have 8 people pushing a car, I assume they could get it into neutral.
Couldn't you lift it if you have 8 people?
No.
No?
I don't think so.
No,
that's a lot. I don't think you could lift it. What kind of car?
What was it? I don't know if it's a monster truck. I mean, it's
like a Yukon.
What about a Cooper?
Like a Camry?
Could 8 people lift a
Mini Cooper?
Yeah, probably could get a Cooper.
Yeah. The problem there, though, is could you fit 8 people around a Mini Cooper?
No, that's a great point.
Yeah.
You're right. You'd have to have them very, very carefully spaced.
Yeah, I think you just throw it into neutral and push.
Yeah, that's probably true. Grand in your hand?
Fan and 2 men and a junk truck want to give you a shot to win bonus bucks with our national cash contest. You can enter the keyword money at KFAN.com. Go to KFAN.com and enter the keyword money.
Good luck. Fan.
Babies cry, and that is normal. But if you're feeling overwhelmed, it's okay to step away. Never shake a baby. Shaking can kill, and 1 in 4 don't survive. Survivors often face permanent brain damage. You can learn more and give today at nevershakemn.com.
the? Well, I got to be more specific. I was about to say where was the Larry Mondella guy text. I got to distinguish like which Larry Mondella
which
guy
hour
text and which hour that I wanted to get to earlier. Where did it go? Evan from Fridley. No. There you guys talk. One of the twins moving. Ask John his opinion. This is related to my book recommendation to Johnny Athletic. I'm rereading The Exorcist, a book that was written, I think it was published 71. The movie came out, I want to say 2 or 3 years later. Very good sound track. If you look up the song Tubular Bells, it was the instrumental score soundtrack to that film and was a top 40 hit at the time. Very unusual, given it was just an instrumental. But very good stuff. Larry Mondella guy says, my biggest complaint about The Exorcist was that the split pea soup used as vomit was too cloudy. The split pea soup was too cloudy.
Think you got corporate involved?
Sometimes you have to. Sometimes that's exactly what you have to do. Updated, even though the Vikings didn't play this week, I did update my handy-dandy weekly Vikings quarterback power rankings. Not a lot of movement, to be honest. A little bit of movement at the top, but I still have, I think for either the second or third week in a row, Danny Dimes, number one. They had kind of a surprisingly tough encounter. Was it with the Cardinals?
Yes.
And they still won, but
by 4.
They, by the way, also, I think they've had running back injuries. They've had a bunch of injuries, too, and they keep winning. Danny Dimes won. I've got Sam Darnold back up to 2. We both blew that pick. He went on the road and did you see the long touchdown pass he threw in that game? Mm-hmm. Under pressure? Big time throw. And they beat the Jags to recover nicely from the game that Darnold blew the week before, the late pick. I've got A-Raj 3. Again, not spectacular, but accurate. Who's the ex-Seattle receiver he's got now?
He has Metcalf. DK Metcalf.
Their chemistry is big time, man.
Well, they were throwing together in the Pittsburgh area high school.
There you go.
This summer.
Metcalf, they worked it. Metcalf has always been one of my favorite receivers. I just like one of those big physical guys. He's enormous.
He's huge.
But he can still move.
Yep.
So I got Rodgers 3 because they're smart. They're not asking him to do too much, but he's making accurate throws. And they're, I think, 4-1.
They are.
I got Carson Wentz 4. I got Kirk Cousins back in the top 10 at 5 because the rumors continue to be he's going to be available at the trade deadline.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know who's going to want him. I guess the obvious team would be the Bengals unless they're so buried by then.
Yeah. Why bother?
Did you also see, this might be top 5 at 5 worthy, this sound, this commentary
from Tua?
From Tomlin.
Oh, from Tomlin.
On the Browns' decision to trade him? Tomlin savages the general manager of the Cleveland Browns, in doing so. It was about as frontal.
Weird.
A rip as one can get. Now, again, they're in the same division. I think that's part of what bugged them. I've got Max Brosmer, 6. Brosmer might well be. This is not crazy to consider, boys and girls. Max Brosmer might be your backup quarterback to Carson Wentz on Sunday. I don't think that's outlandish at all.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Cam Akers drops to 7, although he didn't really do anything wrong. I still have to keep him in the top 10. When he threw, that's probably the best pass we've had thrown all season.
It was nice.
The receiver was wide open, perfectly run trick play.
Still have to hit him.
That's true.
Purdue tried it. They threw an interception. So you still have to find a way.
They did. Pastronaut 8. Case Keenum 9, and Jake Browning drops to 10. Also receiving votes this week, J.J. McCarthy and Jeff George also receiving. Life's Full of Slappies. Do we still have that one? That's probably gone.
Somewhere. It's not on any of our button bars.
That was to the PA and Debate show, was it not?
I think so. Yes.
Did they have him on regularly, or was that just like a one-shot deal?
I don't remember, because that would have been...
That's the Denny era.
Yeah, that would have been like the 2000 Jeff George. I want to say.
Right.
And so I don't know if they had him regularly or not.
Yeah.
They may have. Brought to you by Continental Diamond.
Good point. It's very true. So I think it's a fair list at this point. So right now, I have 1, 2, and 3 quarterbacks that the Vikings all passed on that could have had any of them to start the 2025 season, and that's how it's worked out so far. They've all played well, and probably none more than Colts guy.
He's been great.
Who's been really, really good. We'll see if it holds up. All right, we're going to move to the A section, away from the toy department, in our next segment to chat with our good friend Michael Hurley, former CIA officer who worked in the Middle East several times, post 9/11, worked on the 9/11 Commission, in fact, helped write the report that the 9/11 Commission put together. And I want to get his reaction to the news out of the Middle East. The president is in or was in Israel, and hostages, the remaining living hostages, have been released. Dramatic video there. What do we make of this, I guess, breakthrough? Can it last? Is always the devil in the details? We'll get all of that and what, as I mentioned, his thinking might be. Mr. Hurley's very honest with us and usually very, very thought-provoking as well. So if you have questions for him regarding the agreement, 64686, that is the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line. We'll be back with him. And then in the 5 o'clock, I'm sure we'll get back to Eagles Week. Stay tuned. Always a pleasure to catch up with our good friend Michael Hurley, Edina's own former career CIA officer, also helped write worked on the 9/11 Commission, kind of in the front office, so to speak, and helped write the 9/11 report as well. And anytime a major international story breaks out, we love to get his wisdom, expertise, and analysis. And he agrees to join us now via the Connecticut Water Systems Hotline. Michael Hurley, how have you been?
Hi, Dan. I've been great. Great to be back on with you.
A lot of travel lately? You've been kind of home standing it? What's it been like lately?
A fair amount of domestic travel, a trip or two to Dallas, a trip or two to Miami, and a trip to Spain internationally. But a lot going on.
Nice. Where in Spain? Is this business or pleasure or both, or what can you tell us?
A little bit of both. I'm a consultant, as you know, Dan, for international companies and technology companies mostly, and I have some contacts in the network in Madrid that's helped a few of these companies out, so I go there to work on that.
Beautiful place to hang out in as well. Well, thanks for giving us some time again. Toss-up question. I want to read you a couple of sentences from a Wall Street Journal analysis that may have dropped earlier today. Here's what they write. When Hamas leader Khalil al-Hayya first saw President Trump's plan for peace in Gaza, which demanded that his group disarm, with few concrete steps to ensure Israel would end the war, his immediate reaction was no. The plan, heavily amended by Israel and presented to Hamas by the Qatari prime minister and Egypt's spy chief, looked nothing like what Hayya had been led to expect, officials familiar with the discussions said. Less than a month earlier, he'd been a target of Israel's audacious attack on Hamas in Qatar, told his visitors the group would keep its Israeli hostages until it had enforceable guarantees the war would end. 2 days later, Hamas came back to Arab mediators with a yes. The deal really hadn't changed. The pressure on Hamas had. They lay out that Egypt and Qatar told him the deal was his last chance to end the war. According to the officials, they pressed Hamas to understand that holding the hostages was becoming a strategic liability. And the next day, joined by Turkey, they warned him that if Hamas didn't approve the plan, it would be stripped of all political and diplomatic cover. Went on from there. Do you agree with that analysis of exactly why Hamas came to the table here or seemed willing to say yes after it had previously said no without any real adjustments to the deal?
It sounds right to me, Dan, for such a sudden change and shift on Hamas's part. And I think the key the key to this was getting Turkey and Egypt and Qatar all lining up behind what the Trump administration's diplomacy was. And that pressure essentially telling the Hamas leader that Hamas would be cut off completely, probably economically, financially, but with any political support as well, too, from those countries, probably led to that change of heart. That was a stark reality that the leader, I'm sure, assessed, and it makes sense to me that that might account for his change.
Should this deal, as you understand it, with obviously we're very short way into it, but as it stands as a deal, should it be lauded, and should the President of the United States get a good amount of the credit?
Yes, I think this is it's a significant step forward. Just to me, getting the hostages returned to their loved ones in Israel, that's a big step, and I think we need to applaud that. It's heartwarming to see that happen, and no one can deny that is really an important step forward. Again, I think for that to come into play, the administration had to really be working on building support among these key players in the region, Turkey, Egypt, Qatar, and others, to get their support lined up for that. And so I thought it was quite remarkable today, the summit at Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, where all these leaders in the region and also the world gathered to support this initial step. So I think we can say that it's significant. We should be happy about it. There's a lot of work that remains to be done, though, because obviously there's some key events and provisions that have to fall into place for a lasting peace. Jeff
asks, to follow up on that observation, asks what everybody's asking at this point. Does Michael believe there's any chance this is actually real? Will there honestly be calm in the Middle East now?
Well, that's a great question. I think I've learned not to be overly optimistic about that region. The wars and the conflict, Dan, as you know, have been raging all of our lives and before that even. And we like to think when there's these important good events that happen that's going to signal a shift. I hope so, but we have to really wait to see what happens, because, as I said, there's much hard work to be done and key things. Will Hamas totally disarm, for example? Yep. That would be a key step. Israel has pulled out, according to the agreement and the ceasefire, they've moved further out of the heart of Gaza, but they're still in Gaza. And at what point will they move their forces out? And there is just a number of other things as well, too. But this getting Hamas to disarm is a central point. Then how will Gaza be governed? Yep. What is going to be the constitution of that government? Will it have legitimacy for the Palestinians there? And will it lead to the prosperity that President Trump and everybody else really that's pulling for peace hopes for? All that remains to be seen. I think we do need to applaud where we are today, but we also have to be realistic about the hard work that remains ahead.
You know, let's go back a little ways. In fact, quite a ways. I don't know how this video showed up on my X, thread. These things happen. You get lost in this stuff sometimes. Then stuff. I guess they figure, this is what you're interested in, so we're going to give it to you. And it was a comment. It was a speech or a part of a speech from Bill Clinton, and I don't know how far back it goes. And you've seen variations of his comments before. I'm sure you've seen some from Hillary Clinton. And in this case, Bill is basically sort of reviewing what he believes is one of the central tragedies of the Middle East story that the Palestinians once upon a time had in front of them, PLO, as good a deal as one could possibly ever imagine them getting in terms of land, etc., and they walked away from it. Do you agree with that? Is that one of the great swings and misses? Do you think it was more complicated than that? And how close do you think we came for that breakthrough being the breakthrough?
I think we did come close, and I'm trying to remember exactly what peace agreement that was. Was that Oslo? Was that some other event or significant agreement or near agreement? I just don't remember, but I do recall, and I actually recall Clinton's remarks about that. It did seem to be a very good deal. Often these leaders, I don't know if that was Yasser Arafat at the time,
I think it was
the head of the PLO, but often they would be captured in a way and influenced most by the most radical members of the most radical faction of their movement, for example. And maybe he was under pressure not to accept it. I don't really know. I don't really remember all the dynamics of it, but it was that, inability to accept some form of compromise that actually really would have worked out to the benefit of the Palestinians in the longer term, and turning your back on that led to further conflict and years of conflict ahead. So, the bus has been missed many, many times in the Middle East.
Let me ask you a couple other good questions. Well, before I get to a couple more from the text line, because a bunch of folks have a lot of questions to try to get to you before we wrap things up here close to the top of the 5 o'clock hour. One of them, I've gotten a variation of several of these, is that whether in the end what we're going to find out about this deal, it was what was presented in part to Hamas was, all right, now we're serious. You either agree to this, release the hostages, or else, the old or else that something even more violent was coming their way, that the hammer with the president's approval was going to be dropped down on them, and that also played a part of this. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I think a couple of weeks ago, I think it was when President Trump made that announcement of these were the conditions that were being laid down. Here's the deal. Accept this, or the U.S. is going to step back, and essentially Israel is going to be turned loose even in a far more destructive way than it had been over the last 2 years in Gaza, and sort of saying that the U.S. would not intervene to rein Israel in if that were to happen. So that ultimatum, at the time, I remember reading it and thinking, I'm not sure if this will work, but I think there were teeth behind it, and it appears to have worked, at least to get Hamas's attention and lead to this deal on the hostages, which, as I said, I think is an important step forward.
You mentioned this is a long process, and there are still a number of other steps, and it's the Middle East. And so I think people can hail this as you have properly and still kept their eyes open to say, well, it's volatile there. It's always been volatile there. There have been a number of close calls, some swings and misses, et cetera. So you don't know yet. What you know is there is progress and an interesting framework here. Give me a couple of examples of where it might start in your mind to break down.
Sure, happy to do that. And I just think in general, when events occur, people kind of we all just human nature. We want to, if they're good, we want to celebrate them, and I think that's important. We want to sort of declare a victory. We seek practical solutions. Often, I think, particularly in the Middle East, it's not really an area that's open to practical solutions and and being able to sort of say problem solved, wash your hands of it. I think back then, and you remember this, just an analogy really to President George W. Bush and mission accomplished in Iraq. Remember that the mission was accomplished 3 or 4 months into going into Iraq. Well, it turned out that wasn't the case, and the conflict lingered for years after that. Sort of similarly on this, I'm hopeful that these positive steps forward will lead to really a good outcome. But in response to your question, it could break down in a number of ways. The U.S. is going to deploy 200 troops there, I think, to help with the peacekeeping and getting supplies in. And there are, I'm sure, forces that don't want peace.
Yep.
And they may well try some sort of attack on those troops. Of course, the commanders are going to be very well aware of that and take every precaution to protect them. but you just never know what's going to happen there. Remember the bombing of the Marine barracks during the Reagan administration, and so that could derail something. The Israeli troops inside of Gaza necessary to be there to enforce the ceasefire, but if radicals who want to blow this thing up start taking pot shots at Israeli soldiers, that could lead to a blow up as well too. If Hamas doesn't disarm, which is what Israel wants, of course, that could lead to derailing this. There's any number of other things that could occur. The governance question in Gaza, for example, I think that's going to be a very key question. Who's going to have political control in Gaza? I'm curious, and I maybe you may know more about this than I do, Dan. But where is Saudi Arabia in all of this? It's kind of interesting because I know Jared Kushner, the president's son-in-law, has very close relations with the leader in Saudi Arabia, and I'm guessing that there's been a lot of behind-the-scenes negotiation and diplomacy going on. I would also guess that Saudi Arabia will be lined up as such a tremendously rich country to be deeply involved in the rebuilding effort in Gaza, which is going to be a massive, massive project, and so much destruction has taken place there. So I'm curious about the Saudi role. I just haven't seen that much written about it. Maybe you have seen some things,
no.
But there are just a number of these things as we go forward that are going to have to be addressed. And I'm not going to suggest that the easy part is done, because this first part was hard to get the agreement to release the hostages, and that's significant. But there are really very, very difficult challenges that lie ahead, and I think seems obvious the administration is committed to devoting the attention and the resources to pushing our goals forward and goals towards peace. So it will be fascinating to watch what happens, but it's not over yet.
To your point about the Saudi Arabian role, I don't know if we can connect these dots or not, but I did think it was interesting. The Washington Post had a piece, I think it was last week, U.S. military files reviewed by the Post show that Iran's threat was the main driver of expanded Israeli-Arab security cooperation under U.S. Central Command. The regional security construct includes Israel, Bahrain, Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE, with Kuwait and Oman briefed as potential partners, and there were some other countries involved there as well. Now, we're talking about Iran, but I think we may have gotten into this last time we had you on. Sometimes I know publicly some of the Arab countries have not been all that interested in raising their hands regarding some of these security arrangements. But it definitely feels as if there's significant momentum for this. I don't know if this plays into this deal as well, but a lot more cooperation than there is savagery between Israel and many of these countries, at least in terms of security.
Yeah, and remember the Israeli strikes against Iran in the spring, and the successful strikes, and then of course the U.S. Strikes on the nuclear facilities in Iran. That really reduced Iran's influence, and certainly kind of we really put the squeeze on Hezbollah, which is the main ally of Iran in the region. So there's no question that there's been just a great deal of, I think, successful diplomacy taking place behind the scenes with the Saudis, with the other regional powers. Saudi Arabia is by far the richest country in the region, and that wealth is going to be critical to any hope for prosperity in Gaza. Those countries like Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Egypt, they have not wanted historically to have massive numbers of Palestinian refugees coming into their countries for all kinds of reasons. But so they've been much more interested in keeping them in Gaza and in the West Bank, and rebuilding their economies there. That makes sense from their point of view. So I think that's probably the game that Saudi is playing. But you were talking about the military alliances, and that is key, because it really comes down to this Sunni-Shia issue, too, that conflict, with Iran being a Shia country, Shia Muslim country, and Saudi Arabia and the other Arab countries being Sunni, and Saudi Arabia is deeply, deeply concerned about the threat from Iran, and that really does, I think, pose the basis for U.S. and Saudi-Israeli cooperation that you described.
I'm looking at a tweet, in this case, is from the former chess master, Garry Kasparov, and he is offering this, I guess, cautionary note with actually linkage to some brutal video of what appears to be Hamas doing some street executions of Palestinians in Gaza. The war between Hamas and Israel may be over for now, but the Hamas war on Palestinians is not. And that's part of the wild card you talked about earlier that's very volatile, and it raises the larger question for me. We'll see video in the last several months especially from folks in that area who say they do not want to be represented by Hamas. They don't believe in Hamas. They believe Hamas has actually been destructive for the cause. So how have they been able to maintain their toehold exactly? Who do they represent in over the last, let's say, 10, 15 years? Do they represent as many people as they want to believe? Or is it a much limited group and no one else can kind of get any sort of momentum going to help root them out?
Well, I think they don't represent very as many people as they'd like the world to believe. I think they maintain their power through cohesiveness, political cohesiveness, and also through brutal tactics. They have the weaponry. They have the ability to basically execute, get rid of anybody that doesn't play their game, and that's what happens. So I think the population has largely been living in fear of the Hamas leadership, and it's just they've just imposed it through brutal tactics, and it's fascinating too. Like, so how do you actually get them to disarm? Because many will fear if they disarm that they'll be killed. Of course, that's one thing, and I've seen some discussion that they will be given choices of amnesty or being able to leave the country to seek asylum elsewhere. But then you have the issue of the countries not wanting to receive them because they don't want to have radical elements coming into their societies and radicalizing their countries. So those are thorny problems, but it's clear that Israel and its tactics has severely weakened Hamas, and but people tend to try to hang on to power as long as they can because they fear the consequences of what will happen to them if they have it stripped away or they give it up.
Last item from back inside the toy department, away from international affairs. Let's talk about your favorite football team. The question on the table off the bye is what the Vikings do at quarterback against the Philadelphia Eagles. Do they go with Carson Wentz yet again, fresh off a very good late drive after kind of an inconsistent performance throughout, or do they hand the keys back over to the kid that they intended to run the show if he'd stayed healthy this entire season, J.J. McCarthy? What would Coach Hurley do this coming Sunday?
That's really a tough question. Watching those first couple of games, at least the parts of the games that I was able to see, I just kind of felt, look, you've got a rookie quarterback and you expect mistakes. That comeback against the Bears in the fourth quarter was great. I had given up on that game.
Yes,
the third quarter, and so that was fun to see. I don't know. Like, I wonder. I sometimes wonder whether Kevin O'Connell, what he really thinks now after, seeing what he's seen for the first couple of games. Is Wentz going to hit his stride? I think that's possible. I just, what's hard for me, and I think for a lot of fans, is knowing that you've got one of the best receiving corps in the game, right? Like with Addison and Justin Jefferson and
Naylor
and Thielen and Thielen. Yeah, Thielen. all of them, and just getting the ball to them and letting them do their thing. So who can do that? I guess I'd go with Wentz against the Eagles and see how that plays out, and hoping that he begins to really find his stride with the Vikings, which I think he's capable of doing. But it's fascinating watching how Sam Darnold is doing for the Seahawks, and what about Daniel Jones?
Danny Dimes has been tremendous. Yes, it is crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just been fascinating. And what are the possibilities for Brosner? Is he game ready?
Well, if it was up to the producer of this show, Brosmer would start. It wouldn't be Wentz or J.J. McCarthy. Brosmer was very good with Minnesota, obviously University of Minnesota in his 1 year. Feels like he's 10 years older than his real age. So I said it's possible that Wentz will be the starter and Brosmer might be the backup if they say, well, we really even haven't got enough practice time yet in with JJ. He's not close enough for him to actually be active. I think that's a decent possibility. We'll see how it goes. So I don't think the Vikings quarterback situation has ever been more interesting than it is right now, for including the reasons you laid out. The people that they were in the running for or had on this roster that for financial reasons they felt like they couldn't bring back in the case of Darnold. They offered more money to Daniel Jones than the Colts, but I think Jones understood he had a better chance to compete for the starting job there than he did here. Yeah. And even Aaron Rodgers, who they flirted with, no question, he wanted to come here, has looked not as spectacular as the other two guys, but has looked very solid, and he has the Steelers with a record of 4-1.
Yeah, I had a fun discussion before getting on with you with Justin, and I was just remembering back to growing up and the Vikings, that I really loved, and the offensive line with Ron Yeri and Ed White and Mick Tingelhoff and those guys, and then of course Bill Brown, Dave Osborne, Tarkenton. That you saw them play Sunday after Sunday, and they got hurt, I suppose, but they weren't out like as much as the players these days. You didn't have the hamstrings and the ankles and the knee injuries, it seemed like. And I don't know if the players are just bigger now or there's more violence or what it is, but that's an interesting discussion, I think. Like how has the game changed to where all these players are getting hurt so much? It is a violent game for sure. But I don't remember those guys missing games. Am I wrong about that?
Well,
back in the day?
It didn't feel like in pretty much any sport, certainly baseball with pitchers, basketball, it appears that there are a lot more injuries now. It's a very different world. It's almost as if the debate is whether athletes are being overtrained now in a way that in the old days, if you were a football player, pro football player in the old days, you couldn't train in the off season because you needed another job. You worked as a teacher or whatever the case may be. So it remains to be seen. It is interesting, Michael, the last text I got, what is truly tougher in this world, brokering peace in the Middle East or just being able to commit to a sustained quarterback for your Minnesota Vikings? And I sensed with you were struggling with your answer more about the Vikings quarterback situation than you were the Middle East, which should tell us everything we need to know.
I guess so. No, that's funny.
That's too good.
For sure.
Great to catch up with you. Outstanding analysis as always, my friend, and we will talk soon. Thanks, Michael.
Thanks very much, Dan.
Appreciate you.
Bye-bye.
Mike Hurley, former CIA officer, Edina's own. He's got hockey royalty in his family, Connor, and a huge sports rube. But we have him on for his outstanding analysis on Middle East. Well, not just Middle East stuff, geopolitical stuff in this case, Middle East for sure. We are late for the top 5 at 5, and we are guest-free the rest of the way. So we'll have a lot of time to get back into Eagles Week. I got a couple of other controversial subjects on the table, and we'll get to a mini version top 5. Is that fair?
Yeah, we can do that. I've got KOC on JJ. We've got a Detroit Lions suspended. The Titans fire a coach, and the MLB playoffs, believe it or not, are still going on.
As far as you know, Signetti, as of this moment, is still coaching Indiana?
He's planning to, the homecoming game against Michigan State. Yes, he's planning to coach.
We don't know about tomorrow.